I catfished a former boss to get paid. I used to work for a married couple, Billy, M52, and Gigi, F44, who owned a business services, public relations agency. It lasted more or less for a year. They seemed nice and humble, but in reality, they were shady and untruthful. The company began to falter because of poor management and zero intention to prioritize. Billy was your baby-faced next-door neighbor type. He looked about 10 years younger and had a kind smile. He was soft-spoken and had an artistic and creative flair to him. Gigi looked matronly with a Mother Earth incarnate attitude towards her children. She prided herself on being ruthless when it came to giving her family only the best. She could be really nice when she wanted to, but I found out early on that she was 100% apt at gossip and being two-faced. The company's constant changes were a red flag. They went from business services plus PR agency to IT provider, to a business incubator, to indie beer partners. What I'm trying to say is that they tried to dip their donut on everyone's coffee, figuratively. Some of us had no real way to escape. The lady working next to me was already 67 years old and scared that no one would hire her. I wasn't in a great place either. We were 8 employees in total. They wouldn't lay anyone off because they believed that the employee should quit. They paid us only a portion of our salaries, incomplete weekly payments. Employees would run for the hills once they found a better job. Some of us were stuck. It was horrible. Then, they would pay the normal rate for a month and then do it again. They never cut down on their luxury expenses, so the wife would post her shopping sprees or arrive in a new car like it was nothing. Zero empathy. Very insensitive. The husband was obsessed with making it big time. So much, that he sometimes failed to see an opportunity right in front of him. He said he was Coca-Cola's brand manager. I swear I looked it up and could never find any reference. Gigi had a display full of small local magazines, mostly about design and architecture. They were very proud to be a team member, but in reality, they just helped them print 2 issues. They wanted big business only, but in the meantime, looked down upon tangible potential clients. Like the young Latino couple who showed up trying to learn more about their services. They seemed lost, because they wanted someone to help them set up a coffee business and had no idea how it was done. I talked to them and helped them into the waiting room. They even showed up with their baby in a stroller. That means they must have driven by and decided to come in. An impulsive client should be retained. The guy said his grandpa had a farm and he wanted to create an import-exports company. Once Billy showed up, he listened for a bit, then kind of gave them an abrupt dismissal. That was a dick move because that couple opened their own business with someone else and even have a FB page. It could have been Billy. Billy lined his office walls with posters of Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. His wife, the chief enabling officer, put up signs on each room. The main employee area was the machine room, Billy's office was the chamber, the conference room was a meeting of the minds. Every time an employee disagreed with Billy during a brainstorming session, Gigi would call them aside and tell them that, Billy is your boss. You need to know that he is brilliant and a genius. I want him to have that taste of success. I experienced that firsthand. I also hated brainstorming because that was never on my job description. They just wanted to pick everyone's brains. In the meantime, we had to see the Pandora jewelry, the expensive makeovers for their daughters, and the weekend at the spa updates on FB. Gigi's captions were usually about rewarding herself after a hard week, or because she deserved it. Oh, and I'd like to mention that they bought into the social guru phrases about emotional direction. So if an employee ever got angry, Gigi would tell you, remember, the one who gets angry is the one who ends up losing. For anyone who's been in this situation, you may understand how painful it can be. You cannot leave the job because you have no other job waiting for you, and pathetic as it may sound to some income is better than no income at all. This is an involuntary compromise and it's abusive. Why were we expected to pay for their luxuries via incomplete wages? My best friend's ex is into coding and programming and he agreed to help. If it didn't work out, at least we would have something to laugh about. We created a kick-ass fake website with a matching LinkedIn and the whole 9 yards. To make a long story short, this was supposed to be an investment company and my friend would be very casual. Nothing too eager. He started by liking my employer's FB page. Then comment. Before we knew, my boss took the bait and was engaging. They exchanged emails and he was eager to share all his projects and ambitious shit. On the other side, the investor sent him a list of requirements, like proof of concept, employer payroll, EIN-hash, etc. The investor agreed to work them if they could prove they were legit and up to date. No bank account of confidential info was asked. Within 3 weeks, I was paid the equivalent to the 2 months and a half I was owed. The investor did an about-face and never contacted him again. I left the job as soon as I could. My friend who remained until she got paid told me our boss seemed off and a bit down after he announced big things are coming, but it all seemed to deflate. I never disclosed what was really going on. Edit. My boss wasn't scammed into paying money to the fake website. He was catfished into getting up to date with employee salaries that he owed. Edit. I expanded the story. Edit. For anyone who doesn't understand the story, no money was paid, asked from or wired from my boss to the investor. We baited his greedy character and told him that if he could prove everything was in order, the investment would happen. This included the payroll. No confidential info was asked nor offered, seen or reviewed. He paid everyone what he owed them. The payment was made to each worker as normally. No one stole money via any website. He just made the diligence. EIN numbers and what we asked are not confidential. They were pretending to be an investor, and insisting on various documentation and records being provided in order for the investor to complete their due diligence prior to dropping a load of money. That meant that the payroll needed to be up to date. It could perhaps have been explained a little more, but this is definitely ProRevenge if only because all the employees benefited, not just op. I tried that once. Took a year for me to get paid. By then I'd already moved on and was making enough money that it didn't make much difference anymore. I needed the money when he owed it to me. If I could have pulled off a stunt like this, I wouldn't have had to beg my family to help me make rent and buy food. Kudos to op. Yeah, it's usually a lost cause trying to get back pay that you're owed if the employer has no intention of paying you. When I was younger, I heard, not firsthand, but from several unrelated sources, and the stories were all fairly similar, about a guy who had a business serving the fracking companies in the area. I guess he was a real piece of work. Always doing sketchy shit and cutting corners, and above all, he was super anti-government, which meant he acted like OSHA didn't exist, flaunted safety regs, screwed around with tax stuff to get out of paying anything he could. And paid almost all of his small group of employees under the table. They were, of course, fine with this arrangement, until the pay started getting erratic. At first it was just pay coming a day late. Then it was, hey guys, I can only pay you half now, but I'll make it up to you in the next payday. Before too long, this guy owed every employee at least 4 digits, and in some cases more. Nobody knew for sure, but they figured one or more of his bigger clients found out about how he ran his business and ended their dealings with him. Of course, when you do business like this guy, there's no contacts, so people can just walk away from an agreement, and you're not gonna sue. Anyway, eventually, the owed back pay reached a tipping point, and his crew confronted him about it. And he had the audacity to basically tell them to shut up and get back to work. He'd pay them when he damn well pleased. Well, within the next few weeks, I guess over $50,000 worth of his equipment somehow ended up damaged beyond repair. One work truck randomly burst into flames and was a total loss. A mysterious number of windows ended up broken, and one truck even just vanished, with the worker who was driving it inside. Never to be heard from again. Within a few weeks he'd had most of his shit broken or stolen, and literally all of his small crew just quit answering their phones. He was into so much shady shit that he didn't even pursue any of his crew. He just declared bankruptcy or something, sold what was left of the business, and his house, and that was basically that. That's a fitting story for this sub. I like it. My issue was with an under-the-table cash employer as well, but he made the mistake of writing down my pay rate and hours, but couldn't prove that he'd paid me like he claimed he did. BC definitely didn't, so the gov froze his assets for a year until he paid me. I admit, I took pleasure in it, even if it took too long for me to get my money. I took it as asking for all this info. The boss had to make sure his finances and payroll were in line, so he quickly paid all the staff the money they were owed, so when he sent over the paperwork it was all good. Investment company, then ghosted boss. The actual payroll info retrieval was not how he got paid, but because the payroll had to look good he had to get paid